Welcome to a Digital World Town Hall weekly council meeting. We actually have a live audience with us from all around the world. We're grateful for their attendance and your attendance. Today is actually November 4th, 2025, and we will focus on a real quick report out for the last week for about 30 minutes. We'll also review some of the financial advancements that have happened within the industry this last week. And then we'll have general Q&A from our live audience and as well as anyone that wants to join. We're grateful for our co-hosts that join us and help and just provide value all around. We're going to go ahead and get started on a prayer or with a prayer, remembering that, we may be physical beings, but there's definitely a spiritual element to life, whatever your beliefs are around the world. And as we see this physical element and spiritual element, we're all connected digitally. And we believe that there's definitely a way to be able to bring this digital environment to reality, but with responsibility. And so we're grateful for those who actually take time to understand it and become a part of it and actually utilize it and help it to become reality, because it starts here. So, Wally, if you could kick us off with a word of prayer, that would be greatly appreciated.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for the opportunity we have this evening, this morning, this afternoon, to meet together as members of the digital world and members of the earthly family. We ask you at this time to please bless us and please provide a path for us to find others who have eyes to see and ears to hear and hearts to feel, that they may understand our message and that they might become involved. We are grateful for all those who attend each week and who help us to move this process forward. We ask you to bless them and bless us in our efforts. And these things we humbly pray for in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you for all that you do and stand for and bringing the spirit with us. We appreciate it. For those that may not be aware, this is a private membership association with the digital world, and some of the things we talk about may be looking forward to the future. Some of the things that we'll discuss is primarily around secret combinations and some of the things that they're focused on and how decentralized systems can actually combat that. When we focus in on it, when we talk about decentralization, we're talking about really how systems can actually work on their own, independent of other systems and autonomous of centralized systems from a privacy standpoint. We talk about different layers, whether it's the identity layer, the finance layer, and the storage layer, how those come together. And then communications, assets, and endorsements, which is a beautiful gift, this endorsement side of it, with some of the states and governmental entities that are recognizing decentralized ID and then validating it, not controlling it, not dictating it, not taking it from an individual if they don't do a certain thing or think a certain way, and not even knowing when they're using it. But it's a beautiful thing that this endorsement layer that's actually coming about. We've shifted from some of those things this last week with the state of Utah from the city conference, the first one that we had there in Utah. It's actually moved to us every 6 months. We will have it. We had 12 different states that were there, states in the United States. And it looks like there's 3 of them that will actually be adopting the state-endorsed digital identity standards. And I'm just grateful for all those at the state that actually see it and really are driving to make a difference for all of humanity. I know some of these things may be confusing if this is the first time you're watching it, but when we talk about the digital world, we're not talking about centralized control of digital ID. We're talking about the opposite of it, where identity is actually life. It's life of the individual. They prove who they are. They prove their reputation and their assets and their relationships, and really get the opportunity to then wrap their world around centralized systems. And we'll talk a little bit about that, but that's a big part of what it is. And then really finding the balance between governance/governments and the individual and just freedom, basic choice. So we're grateful to be able to represent that. For those of you that may not be aware, it is 12 words that you get. Link it with your physical, either your face or your finger. In some cases, people have figured out how to do it with a code, which we'll talk a little bit about. And then it uses derived keys. So in everything that you do, instead of putting it into some other system that basically enables you to use these keys where you scan. Let's say you're starting a business. The world will talk about decentralized autonomous organizations, or DAOs, like in Wyoming and Utah and some parts of the UAE. These are all legal environments. But this is actually a system that enables DAOs, but also in everything that you do. So whether it's creating a business or getting a license or a permit or registration or a plate, or just some of the basic stuff around doing transactions, transferring, or receiving or sending, all of those things basically enables life that is from a proof standpoint that AI, or artificial intelligence, can't actually control or manipulate. So this is a very big key of what sets the digital world apart. The digital world is really focused on bringing the physical and digital together, really utilizing decentralization with identity at the core and derived keys and key rotation. We're wrapping up the 2026 year with goals that were focused on the exchange, phones, homes, autos, and community. For those that were not aware, we actually got 7 exchanges that were live within this last calendar year, which was 2 more than our goal. And then releasing phones and decentralized phones within particular environments. We've missed some of the goals this last year. We were actually hopeful to be able to accomplish some of them this last trip, or at least these last 72 hours. But the reality is the year's not over, and we can just reprioritize and focus on other things. But and then homes, we've actually been able to increase that from 720 million in pre-orders to over 1 billion. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And we've actually saw this last week, not just the patent advancing or multiple patents advancing, but the actual product being built and physically seeing it. So it's actually coming to fruition this last week. We were actually able to see that with Carl and the amazing work that he has done. There was also some potentials to be able to link that to some larger environments, but right now there's some negative realities associated with it, but that's that. Autos is another topic that's kind of in the future around creating private environments and working on some of the financing and structuring and importing different components, etc. So those are the things that we've basically been focused on as top priorities this last year. And we look forward to loading in top priorities of 2026 in the month of November from 2025. That's just a cadence that we've done for the last 20 years. Since 2005, we bring in a independent coach. He's a wonderful man. His name is Michael Simpson, and he helps everyone to really kind of think about things, including myself, from a strategic standpoint. And we don't leave this meeting, whether it's a day or two or whatever it takes, to be able to come up with a goal for the following year. So we're looking forward to that this month. Some of the things that have actually transpired are around legislation within the digital world. There's been 3 docs that were created. 2 of them were presented last week. And then we've got a set of docs, or actually a 6th set of docs. They're not approved yet, so we're still waiting on those. But that also tied to some of the stuff that was in one of the countries and regions, particularly the Mexican environment. But there's a lot of moving parts with it. But I hope to be able to present those to you next week. If you hadn't had an opportunity to look at some of the rating standards, feel free to do that and just request access. For those that have and actually care about the details, thank you for doing that. Thank you for paying attention. And we usually allow about 6 months for the review process before it goes from a draft into the legal structure within the digital world. So we appreciate that. This last week, we've been talking a lot about different types of assets that can actually exchange in real time with no fees, no delays, and no entities in the middle of it that actually control in an inappropriate way. So it allows entities to transfer in real time, and how all that will basically come about. It's not just with these 3 different entities, but there's also others that we'll talk about. One of the most exciting things is around life and how it actually ties to identity, reserve, coin, dollars, token, rewards, insurance, and bonds, and how all of this basically comes together around the individual with a proof of life. So we look forward to launching that. That will be a big core within the 2026 year. We're making massive advancements there. This last week, the advancements have primarily been around the insurance element, primarily with 30 different carriers and in 33 different countries. So there's big advancements there, but there's a lot to still be figured out, to be honest with you. It's a big moving part, but we know that that component tied into it really, I shouldn't say the bond here, but the life insurance component. So we're grateful for you at least paying attention to that as it matures, and actually how it's facilitating and coming together. So we're working through those models, and you'll see it live. You'll see it actually as we continue to modify and advance that. I won't go through this, but these are pieces of it. So we'll talk through it. Yeah, and then the suite in general. So how this actually works and how it all comes together, how it ties to Utah life and other jurisdictions such as the Kingdom of Hawaii or the Mexican country or different environments. We've done a lot of work within the Mexican country. I can't say that there's been a lot of advancements, but there's been a lot of work. The work ties to simple things, whether it's around identity or organizations or businesses, and primarily because Mexico is actually tied to the Pacific Union or within the Pacific. It could also be tied into the American Union as well, which would come later. There's also some advancements within the Arabian Union, but right now it's primarily within the Pacific Union and Mexico, which who knows if it's going to go through, within early days within the Pacific Union or if it's going to wait and come through later on. We'll see where that's at, whether it's with the Americas, this whole ecosystem. For those that are not aware, there's some crazy things going on in the world, primarily around Venezuela and some other parts of the world. So we look forward to learning more and more about that. As a reminder, this last week we went live with a new website for the digital world. There were some components that were missing last week this time, and you'll see that they've actually all been updated, are a part of it. These are different phases for those of you that may be new to it. We're focused on a three-phase rollout. We went to a majority of the BRICS countries except for Brazil before COVID. And then after COVID, we went to the Pacific countries. And out of the 28 countries we met with, there were about 10 that actually signed up. And we're currently working through the details of all the onboarding. Mexico is really the last one before we move into the next union. So we've talked a little bit about this and about this. There is actually a new app in the marketplace, Mexican Life. If you use ClearPhone, you can only use the Clear Life, which actually has a lot of features and functions that integrates in with the 16 other apps on ClearPhones. But if you're using things such as an iPhone or others, you can actually find Mexican Life within that environment. So that did go live within the last 24 hours. If you've got questions or thoughts or comments, feel free to ping us on that. We won't talk a lot about these as they're forward-looking, but there are some massive opportunities. Some of the things that we're going to touch on during today's call will be really some of the advancements that's happening within the financial industry, not just in the fiat world or gold world or digital world, but how they kind of all interweave. We're going to give you 2 or 3 different perspectives of independent individuals, as well as just news environments and expert perspectives on kind of what's going on. And then we're going to turn the time over to Adam to really help you understand how that relates into our world. And when I say our world, I'm talking about into this new system that we call life, and particularly around the life reserve. So I'm going to jump to these real fast and just hang with me. This is going to be about 10 minutes, but I hope that it makes sense to you. The first thing that we're going to hear from is from an individual called Noah, and we'll just leave it at that. But when you listen to it, know that it's really the counterbalance to what the digital world represents and what we're building. If you haven't read COVID-19, The Great Reset, a lot of his comments basically come from that. And we'll go from there. So this is not necessarily something we agree with. Actually, we emphatically disagree with it. It is something that is going to control humanity in a way that is not intended, especially if you believe in a creator and that we're divinely created after intelligence and after images of intelligence over the years. This flies in the face of that in a big way. So, but we'll let you be kind of your own judgment and perspective. But a lot of this over the years, we've been talking about how identity and payments wrapped with AI will actually enable slavery at a level that we haven't seen. This is going to talk a little bit more about that reality. So here we go.
the nature of money is going to change quite dramatically. The old systems of trust and of ownership will have to adapt radically. Maybe the financial system will become so complicated as AI takes over more and more of the action that it will be just too complicated for the human mind. So how does a system functions when no human really understands it?
This Genius Act is a Pandora's box for the US government because, like I said, once you go in crypto, like your assets, you can transfer them anywhere. And the Genius Act allows for that. Like you can go right into crypto land and you can go on a lot of the leading exchanges and stake your tether on the exchanges and get 5% interest or 6% interest. You can go on Aave, a decentralized lender. You can stake your tether there. You can get, I think, 4% on that. So, you know, you're not getting anything in the bank. And out in DeFi land, you can get 6%, 4%. But the problem is out in DeFi land, this stuff blows up every day. We just saw another blow up, Balancer.
Yes.
Balancer blew up today, got hacked.
I want to understand this because I did a great deep dive on the Genius Act with Jim Rickards because he truly believes that people don't understand the repercussions. So in your opinion, who wins, who loses with the Genius Act? I mean, why would the banks want this?
Well, the U.S. wants it, right? Because they see Tether as the 15th largest holder of U.S. debt. So it's like, hey, let's tie them into the banks. Let's enable it so that they'll be able to support even more purchasing of our debt because our foreign trade partners have walked away. And the U.S. expects this to provide demand for U.S. dollar-denominated debt. It is, but it's going to create the biggest bank run of all time because when you convert into Tether, yeah, Tether is going to be buying debt with it, but you're going to transfer those Tether dollars out of the banking system. All of the banking assets are going to be transferred out into crypto land. And let me tell you one more thing that's hugely important for gold is Tether's buying 2 tons of gold per week because the U.S. dollar denominated Tether, they have $200 billion in assets. 5% of that is held in gold. The rest is in 5% Bitcoin and U.S. denominated bills, bonds, and notes. Tether Gold has $2 billion in assets. And it's backed, you know, ounce per ounce by gold.
Well, that's why I don't understand why the banks wouldn't be up in arms and say, hold on, we can't just have a run on the banks here.
Well, I don't think they're putting the pieces together. I think they're just looking at the demand for the U.S. dollar debt. So they're saying, hey, let's bring in stable coins. They're buying a lot of debt. It's like, okay, so they bring them in, people are going to convert into stable coins and bang, you're gone into crypto land. But the biggest thing is Tether Gold. They have $2 billion in assets. They're buying gold. And also Tether Corporate, the main group, they're buying a ton of gold too. They have their own vault in Switzerland, outside JP Morgan, outside LBMA, outside COMEX, outside the GLD, and they are stacking gold. And they are buying, it's almost as big as China. It's like 100 tons per year.
This is crazy.
And listen to this, the combination of crypto with gold creates the world's ultimate currency, right? Because you had gold, that was an ultimate store of value, but you never were able to transfer it. You know, like you never were able to use it for payment, right? Like
there's a parallel financial system that's being built right now to compete with dollars. This gold-backed strategy will allow China to build a way to lend and to trade and to develop outside the dollar and outside the West. So in this video, I want to help explain what's happening to gold right now and why, what China's gold corridor actually is and how it works, and how it's going to be used to fund the development across the entire world without ever touching the IMF. I'm going to talk about what that means for the US and for the dollar, and especially for investors, because this will affect everything from interest rates to commodities and even Bitcoin. So with that said, let's get into it. Hi, my name is Henri Jick. Hope you're doing well. Come for the finance and stay for the gold. So before I get into how China's rebuilding the entire financial system, I want to explain the bird's eye view of why the world is even looking at an alternative in the first place. And it really comes down to the idea of trust, the trust that countries used to have in dollars. For example, around 70% of all the global reserves were once stored in US dollars. In other words, countries held their wealth in US treasuries, bonds, right? Because they were considered to be the safest assets on earth. But then that started to change sometime in 2022, because that's when the United States froze about $300 billion worth of Russia's foreign reserves. Now, regardless of how you feel about that politically, what it showed to the rest of the world was, if your reserves are held in dollars, they're not really yours to begin with. They can be seized, they can be locked, and we can just turn it off with the click of a button. So countries are like, okay, I have a question. If you can do that to a nuclear power like Russia, what happens then if we disagree with you next, right? So that's why this change started to accelerate, because there was this loss of trust for paper assets. Central banks around the world, especially in what are called emerging markets, started to lower their exposure to US assets, and they started selling off their treasuries, and they started buying gold instead. Slowly at first, but then faster and faster. Check this out. This is fascinating. This is a chart of how much gold China has. For the longest time, you can see it didn't really move anywhere, kind of going sideways. They bought some, they sold some, they bought some, but as soon as President Trump started the tariff threats, the chart explodes, right? China starts publicly accumulating gold and locking it up in their vaults. It's the fastest pace of buying in modern history. It's being done on a scale that's publicly, this is important, publicly visible to the rest of the world. Because remember, China could easily be buying this stuff in private, but they're not. Because what that does
change. Demand for it increased exponentially all over the world, and soon it had a new name, the petrodollar.
Your currency is only as
The nature of money.
So I hope that this rings true, and you understand the realities and opportunities that we all basically get to experience in life. It's on one hand, it's a time that is never a dull day, but on the other hand, a lot of things are shifting around. So with that being said, there's a massive opportunity with the ability for the digital world to actually step in as a trusted advisor. And with that being said, I'm going to turn the time over to Adam and let him discuss with you specific details around this opportunity, the timing, the importance, and what systems and realities we all have in place to be able to combat this and not only weather the storm, but to be able to come through the storm, not just in a financial standpoint, but in a identity standpoint and a privacy standpoint and a choice standpoint, and ultimately a freedom standpoint because of what's happening. So with that being said, Adam, is there any color or content you want to review here?
Absolutely. Those were some pretty on point videos there. Those reels were right on the money. The US dollar is being debased, and I think it's really pivotal with the timing, mostly because of the debt that the US dollar's in. They basically, there's not many options. They have to inflate their way out of it, reducing the relative value of the debt to physical things, I guess, like gold, silver, other manufacturing commodities like copper, other businesses, shares, bonds. So the US dollar has to be debased so that the debt ratio to what's real is a lot lower, in a nutshell. So we can experience basically our standard of living costing a lot more, our purchasing power decreasing. And this is why Chinese, Tether, etc., are moving to gold to keep their purchasing power. And so we need to do the same. As a ecosystem, as a individual, we need to have mechanisms in place that provide liquidity and a bridge to keep our purchasing power. From an individual perspective, the baby boom population is probably the largest population bulge, I guess you could say, that the history of the planet has ever seen. And they've moved pretty much into retirement. So there's a massive wealth transfer that's occurring, but from a baby boomers perspective, for their purchasing power, are they going to outlive their retirement savings? And most certainly, if they don't move from the US dollar in their bank accounts, savings accounts, etc., and move to hard assets like gold, protect against the future by moving into digital assets to some degree like Bitcoin, etc., for liquidity, they're just going to be left behind in their purchasing power. And that's daunting. Most baby boomers, your average person out there isn't familiar with all of these mechanisms. And so where do they go? What do they do? And what we have here with Life Reserve of asset-backed savings, I guess you could call it. So if you treat it like a savings account, you've got your savings account there, and that can convert to a check account for everyday spending, then you have pretty much what we've created. So the savings account, the Life Reserve, with its number of backed assets, maintains purchasing power as the US dollar loses purchasing power. So you'll see that we've accumulated gold, we've accumulated Bitcoin, we've accumulated gold backs, other bullion, we've got insurance bonds there for yield, we've got REITs for yield also. So there's two components to keeping your wealth, keeping your purchasing power, but enjoying everyday life. And this is something that gold by itself does not provide. Bitcoin by itself does not provide. So the videos that you've just seen there are quite poignant in the number of areas of keeping and preserving wealth, but they don't address all of the issues. If you only buy gold, you're at the whim of the gold price. And as we've seen in the last, say, week and a half, it's back under 4,000. So it's dropped just over 10%. That's quite volatile. And there's no yield. Bitcoin's under 100,000. So it's dropped nearly 30% over the last month. So how do you iron out these volatile markets, price manipulation, all of these things? Well, how we do it is Life Reserve, with its cross-pollinated backed assets, fully redeemable. It's all taken care of. And if you treat it just like a savings account, that's exactly basically what it is. A savings account that you don't need to think about, you don't need to worry about. It gives yield. It preserves purchasing power. It's going to be, I would say, in the long run, better than Bitcoin, better than gold, and the yield component better than keeping it in a term deposit in a bank. Obviously, there's risk to the banks, and there's risk to the US dollars. So this savings account, which you control privately, no one else controls it. And at will, you can transfer to something more liquid, like a check account, and for your everyday spending. And on Michael's system, on Michael's rails there, he has those cards available to be able to achieve both of those things. Spending like a check account, but also savings like a savings account with wealth preservation and yield. So in a nutshell, that's pretty much what we've created. Anyone with any questions, ask away.
I want to connect a couple dots real fast. So you've got this digital life reserve, which is multiple different assets. And then that basically hedges against what you see here as really the dollar in decline. Now, this isn't something we're choosing. It's a reality. It's choices long ago when we came off the gold standard and the reality that kind of tied to that. Then what we saw with Saudi Arabia and the oil. And just this year, 2025, we've seen from January to the end of Q2, which is the end of June, almost 11% decrease, 10.7%, just in the first half of the year. That doesn't calculate the decline since 1971. When you look at all of it, the buying power of the United States of America dollar has basically decreased into the 90s. So 90% decrease or dilution. So that's what Adam is talking about hedging against. And when you look at these different assets, these assets actually represent different pieces within the digital world. So for instance, gold eagles, silver eagles, gold backs, or also gold bullion, or different crypto-based assets, DBTC, or digital dollars, or digital dollar, or even the combination that are backing with real dollars, or USD, or dollar, and then insurance products or energy products that have oil, gas, and renewables, and then properties, different types of properties and real estate investment trusts that tie to it, and then also the clear companies and some of the things that are tied in. But then all of this basically represent digital assets, and you can actually get the digital assets and trade them as you wish. So for instance, let's say this DUSD or this dollar environment, if you wanted to put it into Bitcoin or into other assets, you can literally do it, with a process, so to speak. And you can kind of see how that works and the different elements that are associated to it. But what Adam's talking about is basically taking an asset that actually has its own ability to increase on its own. I'll actually pull up and I'll go into the details and kind of show you an example of what it's done historically. This is the closest example we currently have. So this digital life-based asset has most of the assets that we're talking about in similar ratios. And whereas, earlier, not even a year ago, it was $1.32 to where it's $1.66. Now, many of you may think that's only gone up $30, but when you look at it from a percentile standpoint, that's pretty significant. When you look at a year ago, an ounce of gold was $24 or $2,400. And just a couple of weeks ago, it was $4,200. That's a massive growth. That's about, let's say it went from 2,000 to 4,000, just to round things up. That's a 50% growth, right? So when you look at some of the growth environments in here, what Adam's talking about is basically averaging out some of that, as well as taking out some of the risks and the concerns that might go along the way. So this is a value-added service that a real professional and team will basically offer within the digital world and the different jurisdictions. What I'm showing you here is actually just one jurisdiction. This is another jurisdiction. This is actually what we hoped would actually be the first bank on it, which is a whole nother conversation We'll get into it in the right time. And then other exchanges that may be around the world. The exchanges may have different fortes and focuses, but in the end, the individual owns their own asset. And if they want, they can have it managed, but they're always owning the asset. That's the biggest difference between the digital world and any of these other exchanges that are out there. You literally own the asset, manage the asset, control the asset, and you can allow someone like an Atom to basically manage it in a secure environment like this. But if you ever want to redeem it and say, no, I just want all the asset that it represents, a click of a button basically drops it into all the different classes. Because when we look at the different classes that are tied to this, these are all asset classes: currencies, equities, commodities, precious metals, insurance-based products, also real estate products, energy products, equities in different companies, and then really the individual. And when we start understanding what this life element ties to it, which is kind of what we went through here when we announced this, and you start understanding how it all fits together, I think people are going to be not only super excited, but you also see the future where in the past, maybe you saw Bitcoin go up and you wished you would have figured out how to mine things, or you would have been able to buy things at an early time. But I believe that instead of proof of work with Bitcoin, literally 16, almost 17 years ago, here in another 45 days, almost 50 days, it'll literally be 17 years. We're excited to be able to bring this to reality where people can actually use it in a way that it's proof of life, and they prove who they are. We don't have to worry about the AI. We don't have to worry about the shifting of different currencies, and we can actually own our own assets as this system shifts. So what Adam was talking about is very important as a service and for you to understand. So as Adam was saying, questions or thoughts or comments or?
Yeah, I have a question, please.
Mhm.
So I'm in Canada, and I'm assuming that, not being a financial expert by any stretch of the imagination, I'm assuming that whatever happens to the US dollar will affect pretty much the rest of the world.
Yeah, you're exactly correct. And it's affecting and has been for a long period of time. And so coming off the gold standard, and that was a process over a number of decades. It just didn't happen all at once, but 1971 was just the last point of the final removal. Everything that and remember the US dollar was around long before that, 100 and something years before that. And so it had this reputation of being gold backed, which is why the world at the time of the through the world wars chose it as the world's reserve currency. It was the most stable thing on the planet, as the videos mentioned, along with US treasuries. And so you're exactly right. Everything that has happened with the US dollar and happening with the US dollar has a tremendous effect on everyone on the planet. And so this process of this debt accumulation and having to reduce the value, the comparative value, I guess you could say, of that debt, are real things. And so that answers and takes the confusion out of everything. Is it 100% backed by real things? If the answer is no, then I wouldn't touch it. If the answer is yes, and it's verified, and it's redeemable, and it's tracked, then you're good to go. That's pretty much it.
So
Hopefully that
do
answers
we,
the question.
do we have time frame for this?
You're in the middle of it. It's
Time
happening
frame
right
to be educated to make you move, or
Yeah, to be
I mean,
able to get into the the life insurance or bond, or yeah, what you're talking about. I love the whole concept. I find it extremely exciting.
amazing. Yes, the treat it like a savings account. That's all you need to think about. It's a savings account that is 100% backed with real things, preserves wealth, and you can get into it immediately, and or you can take your time. Obviously, the more time, it's ready to go now.
Oh, for goodness
The more
sake.
time you take, though, of course, then of course the more the US dollar, what you're holding, is going to deteriorate in value if you're holding US dollars. So, but I mean, there is time. There's no rush to, to make decisions immediately. But regular movement towards securing your wealth, preserving your purchasing power, and doing that in consistent, incremental steps is a good idea.
I've got people in my life that their whole life savings are, oh my gosh, it's this is a great answer to preserving wealth. Wow. Thank you.
Yes, there's a lot of people in that boat, particularly the baby boom population that is that's obviously mostly retired now. They're all in that boat, and there's a massive wealth transfer going on. Of course, they're mostly exposed to the US dollars, but it's not just US dollars, it's other
when I look at moving forward, I mean, we're in a spiral down and people are going to look for an up. And I see this as it's a way they can connect with the community around them. They can connect with what they need in a very digital and a very safe way. And I think it's of the utmost urgency that people get this and that it should be now.
You know,
Maybe it's just me.
no, you're absolutely spot on, and I believe that technology can actually free the individual from, like, no one should go with hungry tummies if they don't want to eat. I mean, it's like literally there's more than enough food on this earth. We just have to organize it and forecast it and balance it and understand it. But it comes down to resources that everyone basically needs. And this piece of land here, Mexico, as it's known today, or Guatemala and Panama, and the Kuna Indians on this East Coast, and all of these folks down in this different parts of Latin America and South America. I'm personally sitting in a part of the world in Miami, and with a hope and a desire that alignment can happen for this whole area, but in a very responsible way with the right people in the right sequence and in the right time, and just being faithful that it's time and it's the right place, it's the right people, it's the right sequence. And the things we're working on right now, you've seen a little bit about this Mexican environment. I mean, there are oppressions and control factors that I don't even think I can communicate. But what I'm trying to say is, yes, you're right. It's about communities. It's about cultures. It's about them being independent. But it's also about a matter of a commitment that's made from a generation to another generation, and a responsibility from a culture to another culture. You know, in America, we talk about these dingy campaigns of No Child Left Behind, or people have all of these equality. Well, I look at the whole world, and we're all equal, no matter what color or skin or eyes or whatever else is. And when we start understanding that, when we start taking accountability and a serious responsibility around that, I believe that we can be guided and led. And right now, it's very frustrating and confusing for me, just like it is for you. You're seeing people that don't have resources that they need. And what I'm saying is, I know that in the right time and in the right place and in his time, not necessarily, because I'm a very impatient person. So for me personally, I try and push things. Like, I know that this environment, connected to the Pacific specifically, any of these countries along here, whether it's Peru or Argentina, they are supposed to be connected in with this first wave of the Pacific Union. And as this wave unfolds from really the smallest, inside of the biggest part of the world, when we look at, I hope my system doesn't blow up, because last time I did this, it did, but when we look at Google Earth, or just the Earth in general, like literally half of the Earth is actually the Pacific. And when we look at the people and their bloodlines that they're tied to, let's go through. They literally, this is actually not the right place. Let's see here. Like, we're talking literally half of the Earth. And there's environments in here. On one hand, they're just forgotten. On the other hand, they're totally free. But I believe that the lessons and the impact of these different cultures coming together in unity can create a force that is really not understood today. And when I talk about that, it's not just the numbers, so to speak. I mean, they're a very small percentage of the world. But if we can roll it out there and successfully with people that really have limited guile, limited greed, and limited egos and pride, I think the rest of the world can really learn from a lot of it. And like Raghu has taught us so eloquently, this is really about what you purchase, where it's from, and what currency you purchase it with. And so if you purchase local, for instance, you're talking about the Kingdom of Hawaii. And I personally know a lot of the things that you're talking about with the statistics and the ratios, like literally 90% of their food, over $3 billion worth of food every year, is imported in. Whereas 100 years ago, they actually grew enough food, not only for their own population, but for all their visitors. And so why can't that continue to be the case? And we look at the supply chain, we look at the controls, we look at the dollars, the way that they come in and take it over, like even in the Kingdom of Hawaii, the way it was taken over was a country came in and said, we want you one way or the other. It's going to be a reality. And the one thing that we want you to do is use the US dollar as your currency. So the Hawaiian dala, D-A-L-A, was basically said, no longer use that, even though it was backed by precious metals way back in those days. And the beautiful people, and it's not just the natives, but the people that actually are part of these communities that understand the islands, just like what you're talking about. Like it takes X number of weeks or days or months to be able to get food shipped in. Like when we look at COVID, if you remember some of the first things that they did in COVID, especially down there, like in the Cook Islands, Rarotonga or Atutaki or any of those places, they actually shipped in plants or seeds and let people grow their own gardens. And I'm not saying that's what everybody does. I personally find a lot of peace in being self-reliant. But the point that I'm trying to articulate is, as hard and frustrating as it can be, finding patience and understanding when it's supposed to roll out, and it may not be on our time schedule, is really the key. And I can tell you if there were more resources, things would probably shift. But even with a ton of resources, I think we would still have this timing reality. And the reason is, it's not there's a special date or time. It's that everyone in society gets a choice. And you're seeing through these different videos and these different actions around the world that everyone has a choice. The cultures have choices, individuals have choices, families have choices, society that either help or oppress or control the family have choices. And a lot of it comes down to our own individual choices. And I'm right there with you, Victoria, because for me, the writing is on the wall. I personally love to just act and do, and waiting is not in my DNA at all. But I also know that that's a lesson that I've had to learn. It's been 16 years, almost 17 years that we've been building decentralized systems after 15 years of centralized systems. So that's 32 years understanding that these types of things were going to roll out. Like the things we're talking about, these layers and decentralized storage and how identity ties to it. To be honest with you, this may have been launched on the website just a couple weeks ago, but we've known about it for many, many, many decades and decades and decades. And how it gets manifested and how it gets rolled out it's always exciting to see, but timing is something that is actually the choice of the people. And what Adam was talking about, with these new assets and the questions that Danielle was asking about, well, when can we do it? How do we do it? The frameworks are all there. For instance, I was able to go in and say, hey, it's just the simple, so you just come in here, you put in what you want, and then you put in the assets. And even going through this, there's a reason why these assets have not been released just yet. There's a reason why this document, even though it's very mature, it hasn't been released yet. There's a reason why, and I can't go through all the details, but timing is definitely a part of the elements. And yeah, so I know I'm just going around in circles saying time, but I hope that it makes some sense in some way. So
It does. I mean, it really does. And I see currency as actually being a way of bridging communication gaps, because across all, we all understand numbers, right? We might not have the same word for everything. Hawaiian language, there's 13 letters versus 26, so we say things differently, but everybody knows numbers, and you've created something so helpful in communicating across those different currencies. Something that somebody can use to trade or use to get what they need in a way where it's very clear. Ones and zeros, and we're removing the racial, we're removing the geographical, we're removing language barriers just by using numbers and decentralizing it and making it a safer place for people to be. And I think that's important now, like for anybody. I mean, I feel like if you feel like this is urgent for you, you should go forward with it. I mean, you shouldn't panic over it, and definitely give it to God. But I see it as very much, this is where we're at, and this is where people need to get on board, because if they don't, it's going to go down a very dark path. And that's what I'm afraid of.
What's interesting is I personally, I'm lucky to get 4 hours of sleep. I'll work 20-hour days Monday through Friday and just push and push and push. And I find myself in the middle of nowhere, a foreign place, in a conference room where just yesterday I had leaders from almost every one of these countries, literally almost every one of these countries in South America, in this very room that I'm speaking to you in. And they listened. They understood. There was a man that sat right in this chair right here. He didn't even speak English, but he looked at me and he spoke in Spanish, and the others translated, and he says, what this man is saying is true. He doesn't know what I was saying, but he knew that it was true. And it's because of these people that are connected to their people and the spirit that will actually do this work. It's not the urgency of the news and the talking heads and all of the other elements. I personally believe that it's tied to this crazy stuff that we talk about. It's not so crazy. It's actually very real. It's these layers of the spirit environment, the physical environment. We can all know the physical. We can see it. We can touch it. Sometimes we can feel the physical. And we're all connecting in this digital, but what does it really have on future generations, and what importance is it? And, it's going to be the spiritual element that will actually make all of this stuff come together. Just like how the physical came together. I personally believe our bodies are intelligently organized and patterned after beautiful things that are spiritual principles. They may be in the image of things that are eternal and things we don't even understand or we talk about and think we can communicate different perspectives. But this isn't about the physical or even about the spiritual. It's about the digital, but the digital becomes enabled through physical actions driven by spiritual guidance. As weird as that may sound, and as difficult as it may be to say, we need to just hang in there, and in the right time. Like I've been thinking, I was in the shower this morning. I even thought, when is the day? Today's November 4th. Tomorrow's a pretty special day, at least in America. America got a president tomorrow, like 1 year. Like tonight was the elections. Maybe it was, I don't know if it was the 4th or the 5th when the night is, but you understand what I'm saying, is the date supposed to be there? Because we're prepared. All the systems are ready to go. But it's like, when does it get launched? And why are we in this pause? And why are all these potentials supposed to be coming together? And why am I even here when things go sideways and they don't align? And we see greed and we see ego and we see pride, and not just from others, but me as well. But I don't know. I don't have an answer for you other than in the right time, it will happen. It will unfold, and it will unfold in a fast way that will be natural, and it will be understood, and it will be simple. Like we sat in this room and people, I asked someone to recognize something and they could tell that it was insurance that was new. And I said, you get to pick. Would you pick this? And I'm holding up, fiat money, or would you pick this? And the fiat money was a lot more than what the gold was. And they picked this, and they didn't know why, but we went and did the math, and they saw the differences. And the point is it's really simple. It's like what Raghu says. It's what you purchase, where it's from, and what you purchase it with. And all of the details behind it is actually, like you say, Victoria, it's just math. Crypto is short for cryptography, which is basically just math. So with that being said, yeah. Other thoughts or comments or any continuation of that?
Yeah, I'm kind of, I feel the same way Victoria does. And I just feel like, I don't want to feel this way, but I just feel like all these agendas are closing in on us. And I feel the urgency. I see the urgency. And, I don't know, Michael, I don't know what to say, except that I think our time is running out, and I'm just praying that your systems get launched before it's too late. Because I feel, the energy around me is just, I don't know. I feel like I'm being squeezed. I feel like it's urgent. I do.
I agree with you. Totally agree with you. Other thoughts or comments or feedback or observations or other topics or anything that's negative, or you want to scrutinize things or anything? Now is the time.
I'm going to bring up that your battery on your Mac is low, so we might lose connection.
Yeah, I'm not plugged in. So, well,
I see Raghu is here.
Daniel, thank you for waking up at 2 a.m. in Sweden to join us. I just appreciate it. I know that time zones are never comfy for anybody, and we've literally got people from all around the world on this call. Thank you for just always being there.
I really agree about the emergency. I can feel my inner spirit from the deep of my heart. This is an emergency thing.
Yeah, okay. I really need it in writing.
Becca, you're live. There you go. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, so I really feel really heavy thinking about it every day, talking to people, and I think the people are more and more mature about what's going on in the world, and the emergency to get a decentralized system, and like this Noah Harari, we've seen him in Oslo, and he assembled a lot of people coming to his conference or his speech in Oslo. So prominent people like businessmen and politicians, so people are listening to that crazy kind of people. That scares me.
Yeah, I do know that a part of life is having fear diminished and having faith over the fear. It's a part of why we're here, and sometimes I personally got rid of the TV 30 years ago and don't watch news and try, a lot of you send me stuff and it's like, I wasn't even aware of it. But sometimes when you're just, you're focused on something and, but other data points also are important, but sometimes just being able to stay grounded in the principles and the basics. And I know that, faith over fear is a basic thing. If you take time out of the equation, even time and space, it all makes sense. At least for me, life and everything around it makes a lot of sense if you take time out of it. So I know that it's a very key part of this, but other thoughts or comments? Go ahead.
I totally agree with you about faith or fear. So that's so I feel like I have peace and even joy. joy. Now, what do you say? Yeah. I feel good, and I trust my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So and yeah. But when I say fear, it's a kind of more like care for the people around me, and my country, and
Thank you for your comments. We'll go ahead and I'm going to ask Raghu or Raj if they could provide feedback or thoughts or comments or just anything they're thinking in life, and then we'll go ahead and have a closing prayer on whoever wants to provide that. So I'll ask that after they're done. So Raj or Raghu, welcome. Is there any comments or feedback or thoughts that you might have? If not, that's okay too. There you are.
You're the challenge that you're up against is the same challenge that a diamond jeweler shop has. So you're a specialty item by way of people of a level of sophistication, and it's what's the word? It's not faculty. I guess it is faculty. And so the advantage that you have is that it's a lot like Noah's Ark. So when Noah was out there saying we're going to have this flood and the whole world's going to be overrun and inundated by water, so we need to save ourselves, people left. But as the rains came and the waters began to rise, people began to better appreciate what that he was offering. We are now at the time of torrential rains, and people are beginning to recognize the issue that you have built this Noah's Ark for them. And so there's the marketing angle, and it needs to be done. But the larger issue maybe, are you ready for the people that are going to be coming running in mass? And so it's really at this point about the onboarding to be ready with that in place to be able to process and take many people in at a relatively short time.
I totally agree.
Amen.
Totally agree. I mean, we were doing about 20,000 people a quarter, which is our highest growth periods in shipping. Our biggest day was 5,000 phones a day, and I believe that we've even done some crazy stuff, like we did nuclear testing. Every system went down. How's the rebuild process? How long does it take? What's the workbooks? How do you document it? How do you learn from a system like that? Who does what? It's kind of these fire drills, so to speak, at scale. And I watch a lot of these competitors, and inside of me, my competitive nature is like, no, let's go now. Let's tell the world what Bitcoin was and where it was from and how it was created and what the differences are and why what we're talking about with life and all of this is so much relevant. It's real time, it's private, and how, we can work on peanuts compared to competitors that have 20% of the tech. And there are hundreds of billions of dollars in value. But there's a lot to be understood and said with just staying where you are and finding humility. At least for me, that's a challenge that I struggle with, and not pushing, not overwhelming, but being ready and knowing that people will be there, the opportunities will be there, the windows will open at the right time. And who knows? Maybe we're talking 4 hours away, or 48 hours, or 4 days, or 4 years. I don't know. But I do know that this work is divinely inspired. And we as individuals have to be in the right place, doing the right things, and continuing to seek to understand that. But, the comments are really that have gone on today are really spot on. And it's a massive frustration that I have even today. I feel like just sign this deal, roll it out in these locations, and then we can go do these other ones, because I don't want to do the other ones before those that have been forgotten and oppressed and stepped on and abused and robbed, even robbed from people that I come from. It's not.
So,
Yeah.
there's one other thing that I don't know if now is the right time to bring it up. I'll just ask you, are we on the same page of what you think the Restaurant Row Renaissance has in mind for your platform?
I don't know all the details, but I do know that it's a true and correct principle, like you've articulated, around what you buy and what you buy it with. I don't know the Restaurant Row thing that you're talking about, but if you want to elaborate.
So, two things. I really see Restaurant Row as the marketing arm to onboard people. And it's not so much to market you, it's just that you just have the best platform that I think to be able to coordinate what we're trying to do. So as an extension of that, we are your marketing. And I hope that you have the same slow response from others if we're able to get ourselves up and launched in a big way very soon, as I'm hoping. So the slow response from others is something that I take as a golden opportunity on our side. But the additional is that Restaurant Row is there to create the trading platform for food. And that food is it's going to be the new gold as the US dollar falls. And that is what our platform is looking to specialize in. So we're like a futures market, not like we would be a modern day futures market for food. And
That makes a lot
you
of
would
sense.
be the interface for that. So people that are going to be working at that level with our platform, and hopefully we can be there in a relatively short time, that is who would be bringing to your platform.
That makes a lot of sense. Food is actually one of the things that everybody needs, and everybody will do things about. If you've got to pay in a certain currency, like I remember going to a yogurt shop and they just wouldn't use cash, and so it's like you just go figure it out. But thank you for thinking about it and for taking the action to start.
Hi, Michael. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I was just watching my New York City mayoral race. Your buddy, my Donnie, won the race today.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I said, let me get on. Yeah. So, how do you feel about him?
Oh, I don't.
Do you know anything
I
about
don't
him?
do anything in the politics world, to be honest with you. But I'm gonna plug in my battery here real fast.
Yeah.
But no, I don't. I do know I've got a lot of buddies that care about it and just went down there. So, but yeah. Anybody else have any feedback or thoughts or comments or observations?
Hey, Michael, this is Raj.
Hi, Raj.
How are you? Just been listening to you. Sounds great. Hey, I would like to sit down with you and have a nice chat early in the year, if possible. Gia and I are planning a trip over. I was trying to schedule to visit you between 1st and the 6th of January on our way to Vegas. Are you in the US by then?
I was
Oh,
actually I was actually planning to be in Asia and then kind of all around that environment, India and Dubai and Saudi and New Zealand and then the
Okay.
Pacific. But
There's not much happening in China in the first week of January. They're all getting ready to go to
Yeah,
holidays. You remember
it
that?
wasn't then, it was before then. But let's go ahead and just connect up and we'll schedule something. And I would love to see
Certainly,
you. And
certainly. I think the time is to find out what's the next stage. Maybe do an action plan and just make this happen. I think you kind of have been sitting on this for a while, and we have lots of ideas and plans. Maybe there's a list of action plans to say we need to do A, B, C, D to make it happen.
oh yeah.
I'm keen on looking at those options with you.
Yeah, for those of you that know me and worked with me, action plans and tactical things and steps, absolutely. But there's something that's holding us back, and I can't put my finger on it right now. But because it's all ready, the people's ready, the tech's
Yep.
ready, the documents are ready. There's nothing that should stop us at this point. But one of the biggest frustrations I always had was people don't see it. Nobody cares. Nobody's urgent. And now that it's like right in the middle of it, it's just the opposite. It's like, we got to wait for the people now. It's like this life
Yep.
lessons of just patience and faith. So it's been interesting.
Michael, I'll refer you to our conversations several years ago when I said 95% of the people in the world don't actually care. And the 5% who already do are already talking about it. And I gave my own family as an example. I'm one of 9 siblings. 8 of them just couldn't care less of anything that we are planning or thinking of doing. They got their houses, they got their kids, they got their investments, life is good. Why change anything if they don't have to? This is a comfort zone people get into and they don't look outside it. I think the longer we're looking much beyond it, which a lot of people are not, they're not actually foreseeing it. If you are, maybe we are visionary in our thought processes and they are not. I'm not sure. I need to sit down with you for a day or two and maybe push things along. How's that sound?
Let's do it.
I'm pretty direct.
Yeah, no, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's just schedule it offline, and so I don't go through the schedule here. So
As I said, we're planning for after the 1st or there to the
Yeah,
6th. We have to be in Vegas.
Just message me.
Anytime.
We'll go through the
Sure.
dates. Those dates
All right.
aren't good right now. I can tell you that. But
Okay,
somebody
great.
just said that it's a matter of herding cats, and that's a good explanation. But there's something more to it than that. There really is this timing thing. There's something more going on. But other
No
thoughts or
problem.
comments or
How's your weather up there, by the way?
I don't even know. I'm actually not in Utah. I'm in Florida right now, over in Miami.
Okay.
But yeah, I actually yeah. I'm in
Well,
those days where you
pencil it in.
don't get out much.
Pencil it in. I'll give you. We got about 3 or 4 or 5 days around Utah. I can catch up my old sites and places I used to live in. Show you around, and then we'll go from there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Other thoughts or comments, or anybody want to raise their hand and provide the prayer as we close it today?
Yeah. I can pray if it's okay.
That would be wonderful. We'll go ahead and conclude today and wrap up, and then I may play a video at the end. But thanks for taking the time for those that are here and that are online, and we'll see you next week if we don't in the between. So Daniel, go ahead, bud.
Maybe I can pray in Norwegian.
Heck
Anybody?
yeah, that would be wonderful. Absolutely.
Raise your hand if you understand. Okay, thank you, Lord. Tack Herre för din fantastisk in